Freedom, they say, is indivisible, and I think that this is so. The award given here tonight, in the name of freedom, is divisible and necessarily must be so. We who receive the honor you have done us accept on behalf of a considerably larger company. And if I may inject a personal note here, I listened earlier in the program to mention made here of Herbert Baird Swope, a gentleman I never had the privilege of knowing well, met only toward the end of his life. A great editor, and one that I have known in spirit in all of my days as an editor. And I think that Mr. Swope would agree with what I'm about to say, that an editor is a man who is handy with words, perhaps displays a little courage on occasion, but an editor is nothing without the management of his newspaper. Whatever I have been able to do in fashioning a few words in Little Rock has been the result of the spirit you've heard expressed earlier here tonight by J.N. High School. Without him, I couldn't have existed at all. I would have had no meaning and no place. He owns the newspaper, and he and Hugh Patterson, the publisher who has to sit downstairs where the accounting goes on, have probably seen more of the damage than I have. I've been a little immune from this battle in many ways, but they have not been. And so, whatever credit may come to me on this occasion really is theirs. I think it's fair to say, actually, for all of us, and I'm sure that they would agree, that an accident of time and place has made the three of us conspicuous. In our own terms, as I think Mr. High School said more eloquently than I can say, we have done no more than exercise as best we could the franchise that goes with our calling. If reporting the truth as we see it and arguing the case for compliance with an unpopular law have entailed some hazard, this is, or should be, an assumed risk of a trade which confers upon us the privileges of public trust and exacts certain obligations in return. But there are others across the South, many of them, who have quietly taken the same stand as an individual commitment to conscience. They have no professional ideal to serve and no standard of ethics to be publicly measured by if they take the easy course of silence. For these, the decision to become a practicing pariah is a solitary act of courage, and it should command your respect. But your respect cannot be reserved solely for those who agree with you and with the Supreme Court of the United States that legal segregation is inherently a denial of human freedom. It is quite true that the leadership of those who take the opposing view includes a few villains, a substantial assortment of mountebanks, and an even larger number of expedient politicians. But marching in the ranks of the South's feudal crusade are men of deep conviction, men who contend that they now seek to deny the colored minorities' declared rights only to defend their own, which were declared first and by the same tribunal. You may believe, as I do, that in mid-century America the South's massive resistance runs counter to law and to logic and against the pressing tide of history. But you cannot safely set it down as simply the manifestation of provincial race prejudice, or rest upon the comfortable assumption that the attitudes it reflects are, except in their more extreme manifestations, unique to the southern region. The beginning truth is that nowhere in America is the Negro minority accepted by the white majority on terms of full personal equality, and the isolated individual exceptions only prove the rule. This condition runs contrary to American public policy. In recent years, we've gone to law to resolve the conflict. The South's peculiar institution, segregation, has been declared invalid. If the South does not yet accept the federal ruling, the means are at hand to enforce it, and belatedly the determination. And we may assume that in time, the last of the legal barriers will be cleared away. But if the immediate focus of the root problem is in the South, the larger issue has spread far beyond the region that long counted it an unhappy monopoly. That issue is drawn tonight in New York, in Detroit, Chicago, Cleveland, San Francisco, Los Angeles, all the great cities where racial segregation has never been rigidly buttressed by law, but continues nevertheless in defiance of law. And it is here that a near majority of America's Negroes now live, and their numbers will increase as social dislocations and economic revolution continue to sweep the Southern people, white and colored, off the land and across Mason and Dixon's line. The statement of this fact does nothing to absolve the South of past and present and even future sins. It does, however, emphasize the need for all of us, North and South, to take a new look at the nature of the American dilemma and recognize the ironic truth that in many practical ways, the great redistribution of our Negro population is reducing the South's problem while it increases that of the rest of the nation. A primary consideration, it seems to me, is that we are already approaching the outer limits of the law. The constitutional concept is essentially negative. It guarantees equality of official treatment, freedom from oppression, and the right to free expression. In short, a fair field on which we may resolve those individual conflicts of interest which are inherent in any free society. Within this concept, we are bound to use the full force of law to protect the least among us against physical violence and maltreatment. And we can properly use the instruments of government to relieve the blight of poverty and at least put a floor under every citizen's opportunity for personal economic advancement. But beyond all this, as our present experience so clearly demonstrates, there lies a great battleground of the human spirit, and it is here that the American dilemma finally must be resolved. The physical proximity of a white and a colored man in a place of public accommodation constitutes desegregation in the eyes of the law. This is not an end in itself, only a beginning. If the result is sustained hostility, it is intolerable. The minimum goal is at least sustained indifference, a goal not yet attained in the South and not often exceeded in the North. In historical perspective, we can see, I think, that one era is running out and another is beginning. And at this point in the transition, the nation is faced with a basic and divisive conflict of interest. Everywhere in this country, the rising aspirations of individual Negroes are running counter to the white community's devotion to the status quo. It is true that we've been through this before, or something very like it, in the case of other minorities. But a momentous countdown is running now, and at this precarious moment in our national development, I doubt that we can safely rely on time alone to effect a cure. I cannot, of course, provide any answer to the problems I've attempted to define, but I can suggest that the first urgent task is to reduce this great national issue to rational terms. In many ways, it seems to me that the flight from reality in the North has been as extensive and as debilitating as that in the South. Those of us who could afford to ignore the problem have generally done so. Those of us who couldn't have too often picked a scapegoat and resorted to moral preachment to ease our own troubled consciences. It isn't, I'm convinced, quite that simple. A delegate to the Arden House Conference, sponsored by this organization some months ago, seemed to me to come close to a prescription when she said, in effect, the situation demands a combination of the tender heart and the tough mind. These qualities have saved this country in the past in times of comparable crisis. They have enabled us to make social progress without sacrificing good feeling or the humor and the grace without which freedom can have no real meaning. A world of faceless men is watching now to see if we can do it again. And this could be our final challenge.